Good evening. Tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind that the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, that's 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on your screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you do call in, staff will ask for your name, item number that you wish to address, and your telephone number. Then further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, please press *6 to unmute yourself. The applicant or agent will then be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application and answer any questions that may arise. Maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for the presentation. You will need to state your name and address for the record, and submissions beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record, and a maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to comments made by interested parties and answer any questions that may arise from the committee members. If the applicant or agent will then have any concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the time to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for the decision, and this marks the end of all discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for any application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary Treasurer. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, agent, or any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. The last day to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. Please note that only the applicant's specified persons or public bodies may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In November of 2022, Bill 23 legislation, the More Homes Built Faster Act, amended the Planning Act to remove appeal rights for members of the public. If no appeal is received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have one regret this evening, Ms. Lindsay Yu. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? Okay, I see none. Thank you. Requests for deferral, Madam Secretary Treasurer. Anyone who is wishing to withdraw or defer an application to seek further information through town staff, this will be your time to advise us.
So, Madam Chair, I just promote Mr. Van Kolen.
Yeah.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Curtis Van Kulen.
Good evening, Mr. Van Kulen.
I'm looking to request deferral for application CAV A1532023 for 415 third line. We wish to work with planning staff and amend our application to better suit their wishes and the outlined requirements set forth.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Van Kulen. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, your request has been granted. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Yes, thank you, committee members. Ms.
Have
Chair.
a good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Good evening, Mr. Kieran.
members of the committee, Madam Chair. I'm just requesting a deferral this evening for CAV A152 2023. That's for 510 Wellington. That's to address staff comments that were recently brought to our attention that we need some time to work on.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Kieran. All those in support of a deferral? Okay. The application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Have a good evening. Anyone else, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
Yes, Mr. Richard Mann. I just promoted him.
Good evening, Mr. Mann.
Good evening, Secretary. Good evening, Madam Chair. I'd like to defer application CAVA 155-2023, 167 Baltham Drive. We'd like to address some of the comments that have come in and resubmit an application at a later date.
Very well. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer at your earliest convenience.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Any further requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications?
I don't see any other requests. We can start with the application.
Okay, very well. We have no consent applications for this evening, so our first item on our agenda is CAV 144
Excuse
of
me, Madam
22.
Chair.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was trying to get your attention.
sorry, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, unfortunately, this is becoming a trend of problems with notice. Madam Chair, when I attended Iron Oak Way, CAV A158, the notice signs were placed at the top of an embankment, quite a distance from the road, and could not be read from the public right away. I believe we've got improper notice yet again.
Very well. This was application CAV
A158, Iron Oak Way.
Oh, there it is. I'm going blind. Can't see it. Who's the agent here?
Mr. Alan Ramsey. I'm just gonna promote him.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Ramsey. So, as per our committee members, you've had insufficient notice on your application, so we will have to defer it. And then you will have to make sure that the signs are appropriately placed so that they can be visible from the streetscape without anyone having to trespass on the property, as per the letter that you received with your application.
Okay, so we did install, we were given 3 signs, and one was installed adjacent to a fence, in front of the fence, and 2 were put on Iron Oak Way. Because of the grade on the site, there's a very deep ditch followed by a steep bank, and the signs were put at the top of the bank as I deem to be the best location for a sign. If that's not appropriate, then we'll certainly install signs. But certainly the one sign that is in front of the fence is clearly visible. It's about 6 feet from the sidewalk.
Okay. While I appreciate that, the 3 signs you were given were supposed to be surrounding the property from each street scape. So you'll see we'll have to reissue the notice and give people enough time to understand that there is an application at that site. And according to our bylaws, our hands are tied with that.
Okay.
So we'll try and get you in at the soonest agenda within this time frame that allows for enough circulation.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, so your application has been deferred, and the Secretary Treasurer will let you know when you'll be in on the next agenda.
Is it the deferral fee applicable?
Yes, the deferral fee is applicable.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any items that they'd like to bring to the attention of the committee?
Sorry, Madam Chair, did you move the motion to defer?
Sorry, I didn't. I apologize. All those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. None opposed. Okay, so where were we? If there are no other items to be brought to the attention, can we start with the first item on the agenda? All right. So CAV 144 of 2023 at 2500 Sawet Boulevard. Again, it's CAV 144 of 2023 at 2500 Sawet Boulevard. Who is the agent for this application?
Hi, Madam Chair. It's myself, Sarah Knoll from GSP Group. I do want
Good
to
evening, Ms. Knoll.
Good evening. I do want to make sure our team is all promoted here. And I do see my colleague, Adam, Nicole is there, and then there would be a Greg Liu from Paradigm as well. Perfect. Great. So we're all here. So I'll have Adam present the application for you.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Nanji.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. So my name is Adam Nanji. I'm a planner at GSP Group, and our office is located at 160.
Sorry, Adam, this is the wrong. There we go.
Oh. Yeah, there we go. So I'm a planner at GSP Group, and our office is located at 160 Locke Street South in Hamilton. So we have been retained as the planning consultant on application CAV A144/2023 for 2500 Sawet Boulevard in Oakville. With me today is from North Horizon Development Group, Nicole Sudamore, from Paradigm Transportation, Greg Liu, and from GSP, Sarah Knoll. So if you could go to the next slide. So the site to which this variance will be applied for is a 6-story residential development that has recently gone through a site plan approval process and was approved in April of this year. So if you could go to the next slide. This minor variance is in regard to the reallocation or relabeling of the parking spaces being provided on site. The variance is to reduce the number of visitor parking spaces by 24 spaces from 94 to 70 and to allocate those 24 spaces to be tenant spaces. This is to allow for a parking space to be available for each of the 374 dwelling units. The total number of parking spaces approved for this development at 444 spaces will still be provided. The total number of parking spaces provided are in excess of the zoning bylaw requirement. A parking study was completed and has determined that the variance will still provide a sufficient number of visitor parking spaces to meet the demand for the property. This means that spillover of visitor parking is not anticipated, with this site providing 70 parking spaces rather than 94. The parking study, prepared by Paradigm, was reviewed to the satisfaction of town staff as indicated in their comments. We have reviewed the staff report and agree with the recommendation to approve the minor variance. If any of the members of the public or committee have any technical questions regarding the report, you may direct them to Greg Liu, who is here from Paradigm, our transportation consultant. We are happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the application.
Thank you, Adam. Are there any questions of the applicant at this time, or any items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Has anyone showed interest in speaking to this item on the agenda, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no phone calls up to this time.
Very well. Then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit and having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having heard the presentation from Mr. Nanji, I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the Fortesse Act. I'll put forward a motion of approval. That motion will be subject to two conditions, those being the apartment building be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated December 6, 2022, and approved by the Director of Planning Services for final site plan approval on April 12, 2023, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. I would note there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
CAV 138 of 2023 at 64 Navy Street. Again, that's CAV 138 of 2023, deferred from October the 4th of 2023 at 64 Navy Street. We have two letters of support from a Jane Hockring and Jamie McRae and Ontario Limited, Clever Limited. And I believe this is Mr. McTeljan's application. Who's here representing it? Good evening, Mr. McTeljan. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much to the chair and committee. So yes, my name is Rick McTeljan. My company is SMDA Design Limited. The address is 1492 Wallace Road, Oakville, Ontario. I'm here before you with an application for additions to a building, an existing building in the old Oakville Heritage Conservation District. The building's at the corner of Navy Street and William Street. The existing building was constructed approximately 1875. The building is a 1.5 story existing building with an existing 1.5 story rear addition. The proposal is to do renovations to that rear addition. I'd like to point out that in my site plan, I refer to that rear addition, which is the area on the drawing that you're looking for with a dashed X in it. I refer to that as being rebuilt, but I'd like to clarify that. The addition, this is not something that's being demolished and reconstructed in any way. It's being renovated. And second story is being converted from a 1.5-story structure to a 2-story structure. But I do want to clarify that the intention is not to demolish that existing part of the building, but to renovate it. That will be renovated, and then as you can see with the dark indicated areas on the site plan, we're proposing a addition to the north, which is the proposed two-story addition at the top of the screen, and a small entrance, small 1-story addition to the bottom part of the screen there, which is a new, basically side door with a little porch beside it. Because of the nature of the site and the small small lot area, there's a number of minor variances that are being driven here. The minor variance for gross floor area, the minor variance for coverage are clearly being driven by the lot area. The other variances that are proposed, which are the ones for setbacks, are in fact effectively all the existing setbacks. So there's no decrease in setback from this proposal, with the exception of at the front where there's a minor decrease in setback because of the proposed front porch. We have historical photographs that indicate that there was previously a porch on this building, and what we're seeking to do is we're seeking to effectively recreate that porch. The previous porch was not as wide as the existing. The porch has to be wider because the front door location has changed since the time of that existing porch. But the size of the porch and the configuration of it and so on is something that's being, the design of it is driven by the existing photographs that we have, and also porches of that nature, flat roof porches of that nature are very prevalent within the community. We have had conversations with Heritage Oakville. They've attended the site. This, of course, has to go to them for approval, but from our meeting on site, they were certainly very supportive of the proposal. The design here is such that the additions are tucked completely behind the existing house. So the existing house is tucked behind the house, both in terms of the left and right dimension and then the height. So there's no increase in height. You effectively can't see the additions from the front of the house. The only change is that the proposed porch. My client has had conversations with their neighbors. The neighbors that surround the building all have no issues. The committee has before it two letters from the neighbors. There's in fact a third letter that was on the previous agenda that didn't make it to this agenda, but there's a total of 3 neighbors have indicated support for the application, and to our knowledge, there's no one who's not in support. So that concludes my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and would ask for the committee support in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarifications of Mr. Metaljan at this time? I see none. Has anyone called with interest to speak to this application?
There is no phone calls up to now.
Okay, very well. We'll take the matter into committee then. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I would note, despite the number of variances being requested, many of those are largely to reflect existing conditions, and I don't see any impacts being caused by the modest additions being made to this house. I would note that 3 letters of support from the community and no objections. I would make the approval subject to the issuance of a heritage permit to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, that the additions and alterations be constructed in general accordance with the final approved heritage permit, again to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the approval expires if the building permit hasn't issued within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
application CAV 151 of 2023 at 1339 Ario Road. Again, it's application CAV 151 of 2023 at 1339 Ario Road. I do have a request to attend from a Jill Fausignier and John Greenwood. Ms. Yang, go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Luis. I'm the designer and the agent for the owners of 1339 Arrow Road. So we are proposing 3 variance items, which including the maximum garage area, the maximum floor area, and the maximum building height. There was a previous minor variance application for the same proposal. We received staff comments with no objection for these variance items. The intent of the design is to create a building compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The variances are minor in nature and will not create any adverse impacts to adjoining properties. Next slide, please. So for previous application, there was 3 missed variances for maximum encroachment into a minimum yard for window wells, the maximum lot coverage, and the minimum front yard. The table above shows the list of variances proposed and the missed items. So in this application, we apply the same variance items with the last application, and the submitted revised drawings compared to the 3 missed zoning bylaw requirements, which mentioned on staff's comments. So the first one, we reduced the window well size in the front yard, and we moved the house back. So this also helped to comply to the minimum front yard. And we also reduced the lot coverage to comply to the zoning bylaw. So all the 3 missed variances from the last staff's reports was cleared. The overall elevation of the building won't be affected. Next slide, please. And the owner has been in communication with the neighboring properties all the time from the last application to this one. So we want to make sure the neighbors feel comfortable to our design, and we want to provide a better privacy for neighbors' backyard. So the owner decided to remove the 2 windows on the east elevation and use the privacy glass on the 2nd floor window. This was discussed and confirmed with Jill and John, who live on the east side, to the owner. The updated elevation will be submitted for building permit application and comply to building code accordingly. I think we really try to work within the parameters within this neighborhood, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Yang. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Yang at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest other than Mr. and Mrs. Greenwood who were interested in attending?
There is no phone call. However, if you can repeat, if anybody wants to speak in this application, they can raise their hand, please.
Sure. We are on application CAV 151 of 2023 at 1339 Ario Road. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will invite you to speak. Okay, if no one has raised their hand, we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. excuse me, after having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having heard the presentation from Ms. Yang, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act. I'll therefore put forward a motion of approval. That motion being subject to two conditions, those being that the detached dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated January 3rd, 2023, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Talowski?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could offer a friendly amendment to Mr. Hardcastle to revise the conditions to require the applicant to submit revised elevations in accordance with the drawing shown to the committee to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning.
Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will accept that, yes.
Very well. Noted. All those in support of the amended proposed conditions and approval? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members. Have a good night.
Did you get that, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
I just want to make sure that actually is it the site plan dated January 3rd and only elevation plans revised to the satisfaction of director? Okay, thank you.
Okay. We are at application CAV 154 of 2023 at 3430 Post Road. Again, it's CAV 154 of 2023 at 3430 Post Road. Who is the agent for this application?
Good evening, Madam Chair. This is Waliuddin Mohammed, the authorized agent for this application, and the business address is McQuaid.
Good evening, Mr. Mohammed. Can you please put your camera on?
Sure.
Thank you. And go ahead. You were about to give us your address for the record.
Sure. It's 6 Ripon Street, Mississauga. And the property address in concern today is 3430 Post Road in Oakville.
Okay.
So if I may present shortly.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, so today's application before the committee is for a variance requesting for the encroachment of a stairwell of a below-grade entrance in a rear yard. The projection of this stairwell is 1.7 meters into the required rear yard, which leaves a setback of 5.30 meters. And I request the committee to kindly consider this and approve of this. I've gone through the planning comments and the other comments from the city staff, and I do find it minor in nature. And I request the committee to kindly approve of this application. Any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Are there any questions or items of clarifications of the agent at this time? Okay, I see none. Has anyone called with interest for this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no phone calls at this time.
Okay. We'll take the matter into committee then. Who would like to move the motion? Mr. Dickey, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based on my review of the owner's application, site plan, building elevations, in my site visit, together with the presentation by the owner and the planning staff's report. It is my opinion that this is minor in nature, conforms to the four tests on the Planning Act, and I make a motion that this application be approved, subject to the conditions that the existing below-grade access stairs be permitted in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawing dated August 8th, 2023, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision that the building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
We have CAV 156 of 2023 at 418 Brook Mill Road. Again, it's CAV 156 of 2023 at 418 Brook Mill Road. I have Ms. Antonella Ferron as the agent.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening. Okay, the subject property at 418 Brookmill Road is currently occupied by a single detached dwelling, which is to be demolished, and the homeowners propose to improve the site with the construction of a new two-story detached dwelling subject to 2 variances. In response to the staff report, we would like to remove the request for a height variance. This pages 3 to 6. My apologies, I put them in the wrong order, but if we go to the next, not that slide, but the next slide, and then all the 3 following slides, they illustrate the design with a shallower roof pitch with a maximum of only 9 meters, so no variance would be required for building height. The second variance deals with the maximum residential floor area. We're requesting 5.1% over the allowable, or 28.36 meters. Slides 1 and 2, pages 1 and 2, illustrate this additional area highlighted in yellow as it relates to the plans proposed. Since no variances are requested for side yard setbacks or building coverage, we believe the build form would fit into the character of the existing neighborhood. Though the homes on either side of the subject property are not 2-story, all new homes on the street are following this trend in a variety of architectural slides. I've included slides 7 and 8 as two examples of such type of construction on Brookmill, and the following slide as well, in a variety of architectural styles. For this reason, we believe the proposed home follows the development trends in the area, and more specifically on the street, and is also in keeping with the zoning bylaw and official plan. We believe that the proposal is desirable, and the one minor variance requested is minor in nature. Thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Ferron. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Ms. Ferron at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Talski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that you removed the height variance. Was there any consideration to also removing what you've described as a small variance and fully complying with the bylaw?
To move that area of the house altogether, my clients wanted that space, space for the large family gatherings. So we hadn't considered that. I considered a deferral, maybe just to discuss with the planner directly to find out what the concern was. But it was short notice, and we felt that the variance requested was sort of in keeping. Like, I looked up 450 Brook Mill Road, and they exceeded the FSI by 259 square meters. I mean, it translated to 45.28%, but the actual footprint was larger. And because this additional space will be at the back of the house and set back from the neighbor further than was required, we felt that it would have a very minimal impact on the character and the neighborhood as a whole.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually just a request for staff to put up the elevation drawing. Again, that was the revised elevation drawing. Can you? Yeah. Okay. And just based on that, if I could ask the applicant a couple of questions. So you've talked about adjusting the roof slope. You're adjusting the main roof as well as the two open dormers or gable ends?
Yes, they were made shallower in order to keep the peak at 9 meters. So everything of the main upper roof was reduced.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask if staff could just leave that up for a moment while I sort of look at things. So you've reduced it, what, from a 10-12 slope to a 8-12?
Yes. And even front to back, I reduced it to 9-12. I'd have to double check what it was. It may have been 10 or 11.
Madam Chair, would you, would the Secretary of Treasurer please move the slide deck forward to look at the side elevation? Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to see the other drawings of the space that you indicated in yellow. If staff would be kind enough to put that.
Yes. So it translates to about 5 feet in.
So the first one is in the primary bedroom, the extra space?
Yes, and in the ground floor, it's the living room.
Can you tell me roughly what the portion highlighted in yellow in terms of square footage is?
So it's half of the overage. So we have, we're over by 267, so it's about 135
square feet.
Yes.
On each floor?
On each floor, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to staff. Any other questions or items of clarification? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question for staff this time, I guess the equal and opposite. You've heard the explanation of the additional square footage, the fact that they've notched it in, so it's not right up to the minimum side yard setback. Does staff still feel, having heard the explanation, that the variance for floor area would cause an impact?
To you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is since the high variance has been removed, staff feels that adequately addresses our concerns. Our concerns primarily were the cumulative impact of both height and the residential floor area that increased the massing and scale of the dwelling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muzaib. Okay, are we ready to take the matter into committee? If no one has called in for this application?
There is no phone calls.
Okay, let's get the discussion rolling. Who would like to start us off? Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, given the removal of variance number 2 and the explanation from the applicant, the comments from staff, my assessment is that the floor area variance in this case, although exceeding the requirement, I believe the way it's been dealt with in the rear of the property with a step back so that it's not imposing on the neighboring property, I don't believe that there's going to be an impact caused by the variance that's being requested. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to move that the application as amended to remove variance number 2 be approved. I would note that there was no objections from the community, and I would make that subject to 2 conditions, or maybe 3, that the applicant submit revised elevations showing compliance with the height requirements as provided to the committee. That development occur in general accordance with the revised site plan and to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. Sorry, the revised elevations to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and the site plan as submitted to the committee. So we don't have a condition, I don't have a date for that. And that the approval expire within 2 years if a building permit does not issue.
Very well. Do we want to look up the date for the site plan so that it is on record? Madam Secretary Treasurer can try here.
I'm just going to request the site plan. Maybe we can read from the screen.
Okay, very well. Ms. Rowan, if you know it offhand, you can let us know as well.
Sorry, I'll look at it. I'll open it.
Madam
Madam
Chair.
Chair.
2023.
Sorry, I did not hear.
It's July 2023.
Very well. Okay, Madam Secretary Treasurer, did you get all of it?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under normal circumstances, as you know, I'm not a big fan of making changes on the fly in front of the committee, and I've generally objected to the proposition that additional GFA is allocatable to a specific space. That being said, the design of this building is such that it does break down the additional massing, the roof forms, and the multitude of architectural characters along the streetscape are significant in terms of doing that. So notwithstanding my reservations, I will be supporting the motion on the floor. The elimination of the height variance was significant in terms of my supporting this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. And I do agree wholeheartedly with you. I think this might have been the first one since we started this year to attempt a change on the fly. So it's good warning for applications to follow because it makes our job harder to see the plans in front of us and tie them to the conditions. However, you presented it well enough in a simple format that we can understand it and be able to formulate our opinion with that regard.
My apologies, Madam Chair. It's my first application to the town of Oakville in a long time, so my apologies.
That's fine, and thank you for that. Any other discussion or items of clarification before we take the motion to a vote? The motion is to approve the application subject to the aforementioned conditions that were read. Primarily the elevations being to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and the site plan dated July 2023 with the provision that the height variance is removed and is complied to the removal. Did I miss anything? No? Okay, all those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you and have a good evening. Okay. Item CAV 157 of 2023 at 2058 Constance Drive. Again, this is CAV 157 of 2023 at 2058 Constance Drive. And we have one letter of support from a Mr. and Mrs. Salmin and Yang Jane. I'm not really sure which one is the last name, so I'll be on the safe side and just read them both. Good evening, Ms. Medviva. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of committee. For the record, my name is Stephanie Medviva. I'm an associate with Glenchnar and Associates, the registered agent on behalf of the owner. If I could just have my presentation, please.
I guess staff is having a technical difficulties.
If you can wait a couple seconds.
No problem.
Sorry, Madam Chair, did you ask for the drawings?
No, I believe Ms. Medviva has a presentation that was submitted, and that's what she's waiting for.
Yeah, can you open the presentation, please?
Is that it, Ms. Medviva?
It's not, but that's okay. We can make do with it.
Did you have a PowerPoint that you usually have a PowerPoint, didn't you?
I do.
This is the only one that I have. I didn't receive any presentation from you.
It was sent on Monday, but that's okay. That's fine. I'll just make do with this one. If I could have the elevations ready, just proceeding, following that would be great. Thank you so much. All right, so the site before us tonight is municipally addressed as 258 Constance Drive. It's located on the south side of Constance Drive within an established neighborhood. The neighborhood area surrounding the site has an eclectic mix of uses, can be understood to have a diversity of built forms and an eclectic neighborhood character. The proposal before us tonight is for a replacement dwelling. The proposal is largely unchanged from the variance approval that was received in June of 2021. The proposal triggers the need for 3 variances. Those variances are for reduced flankage yard, an increased residential floor area ratio, as well as an increased lot coverage. The flankage yard provides, so the proposed flankage yard, and actually we'll stay on this slide, that's fine. The flankage yard provides for an appropriate position on the corner lot of the property. It also is visually screened by the public right-of-way, privacy fencing along the shared property lines, as well as landscaped open spaces. These features collectively ensure that there is an appropriate built form provided and does not lead to adverse privacy or overlook concerns. In terms of the increased residential floor area ratio, as demonstrated on the side elevation, or the side elevation on screen before us, the proposed dwelling features setbacks above the ground floor, so there's a clear ground level aspect, particularly along the side flankage yard and the front elevation and the side elevation. These features allow for the provision of covered front porches, which is a defined feature of the surrounding neighborhood. There's also living spaces integrated within the roof line. So if I could just have the front elevation, please.
Can you move to the front elevation? And also I add the new presentation.
Perfect. If you can stay there, that's great. Thank you. So this is the side elevation, but it does demonstrate the integrated living spaces within the roof line. So collectively, the stepbacks above the ground level and the living space integrated into the roof line eliminate the adverse appearance of mass and scale. And again, these features are found on dwellings within the surrounding neighborhood. So it also provides for a consistent built form and architectural character that is consistent and compatible with the established neighborhood character. Now, lastly, in terms of lot coverage, the town's bylaw requires that lot coverage be calculated to include the areas of front covered porches, side covered porches, rear covered porches, as well as walkout basement areas. In the case of the proposal before us, approximately 6.85% or 50.95 square meters of the requested lot coverage is contained within the front covered porch. So the front covered porch that currently appears on the left side of the elevation in front of us, the side covered porch, which is immediately in front of us on this elevation, as well as the covered rear porch to the right of the elevation in front of us, and the basement walkout area. So overall, the lot coverage requested is a minor deviation. It's less than 1% above and beyond what the existing permissions allow for. It's consistent with built form previous approvals and existing built form patterns within the surrounding neighborhood. So overall, the variances requested facilitate a built form and built form features that are consistent and compatible with those in the surrounding neighborhood. As outlined in my submission letter, it's my opinion that the 3 requested variances before us tonight meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm happy to answer any questions that there may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Medvedeva. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? I see none. Has anyone called in with interest to speak to this application? And if there's anyone in attendance who would like to speak to this application, please raise your hand and the Secretary Treasurer will invite you in to speak. If no one has raised their hand, we'll take the matter into committee, Madam Secretary Treasurer.
There are no phone calls.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Dickey, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Based upon my review of the owner's application, site plan, building elevations, my site visit, together with the presentation by the owner's agent, the letter of support by the neighbors, and our previous approval, the creative adjustment. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the variance variances subject to the condition that the detached dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated March 11th, 2022, and elevation drawings dated May 31st, 2021, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night. I believe that was the last item on our agenda. We have confirmation of October 8th minutes. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you. And motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle, at 8:05. Madam Secretary Treasurer, let us know when we're offline, please.